Howdy, all of you delicious people. I would honestly say uh, this episode 5 is probably hands down the best episode out of all of these episodes. Hands down. I do feel like there is a part of this episode that I do feel they are kind of milking a little bit of it. But like they're really just kind of milking some, they were like stretching some bits of time within this episode also. So like it's not a 100%, like it's kind of like if all the episodes were just kind of like a 50-50 split, where it's kind of like this one is much more of like a 90% like yay, and like 10% where I was just like nitpicky things that I could have cared less about. But and I don't think I 100% like felt that way about every single episode, that it was a 50-50 split. Because like the very first episode I was like, way better than WandaVision. Way better than WandaVision. I actually could invest in all the characters and whatever. Like I actually like the fact that we had that like it kind of feels like at the tail end of every one of these episodes we have to have some kind of tease here or there. So I think that's what they're really trying to do, is just like go like, well, there needs to be a reason for people to tune in next week, because if people don't have a subscription for this anyways, like why do they have to tease everything? Like they didn't do that in WandaVision. But WandaVision didn't have like relevant content anyways. Like they had a lot of nothing, and then they had a bunch of like whatever like I don't understand what's going on in that show. Where this show, it basically straight up says what all is going on, and I like that fact for the most point. We have it to where Wakanda is still in this episode, and there might quite possibly be telling us that where Bucky is going to go, or where he isn't going to go after this show, I guess, is over. Which I was like, oh, like I wish that like I don't know, I kind of like what is Bucky gonna do past this point, because I don't think that he's going to be consistently tied with Falcon. Like, I think at some point, probably Bucky and Falcon are eventually going to have to go their separate ways. And it would honestly be interesting if Winter Soldier did his own show. Like, they had it to where Winter Soldier had his own comic book. Why not have the Winter Soldier have his own show? And then, of course, Falcon just keep doing the movies. And so on and so forth. Because after this show is over, they're not going to... I don't think they're... Like, I think every single end of every one of these shows, they're not going to do a second season. Unless it's just going to be like, hey, this is going to be the Winter Soldier season, and Falcon is just going to be on here from time to time, or whatever. But anyways. But yeah... Love this show. If anything, I'm really like the things that I kind of had a inkling about, I think are even coming to be more of a thing that I'm like, yeah, I think I was actually right about what I was kind of going into, because I'm assuming or assessing that U.S. Agent is like kind of where I thought he was going to go. And we have it to where U.S. Agent, a lot of people were saying, yeah, I hate John Walker. I hate this new Captain America. I don't like him. I don't like the actor. I don't like whatever. And so we end up having within this episode to where it's just like, yeah, like, there was a whole entire reason for that. There was a whole entire reason for you to not like this person. And especially in this episode, you can understand where this character is going to go and maybe quite possibly be not liked even more. I don't know. But man, was this, like, the very beginning of this episode was just straight up awesome. And then also we have a moment where Falcon is pondering some things, let's just say. And when we have that pondering moments, those parts were awesome as well, where we're having it to where like Falcon is really really becoming a really interesting character finally in this show, to where before it was just like, well, like it's a toss up between like who I can really invest in. Can I really invest in Winter Soldier? Could I really invest in Falcon? Should I just invest in the show altogether? Like, this episode really helps me invest in Falcon as his own character, and then Bucky is just kind of a thing within this show. Because we have it to where, like, Bucky doesn't have a lot of real, true, legitimate things going on in the show, or within this episode, really, that anyways. So, let's go into the spoiler arena about this episode, or the spoiler area. Really, just an overwhelmingly just amazing episode overall. Because, really, this episode is going to go on to really just be bigger and better things, really, I think. And so, because we have it to where we have a big, like, transitional episode for certain characters, and to kind of see where they're heading through what is to be the rest of this show. Whether we're going to have one more episode of this, or 3 more episodes, I don't know. But when looking at it, we could have just one more episode and we could be done with the series, because I don't know exactly how many episodes this is going to have. They could probably guarantee that there's only going to be 8 episodes, or 6 episodes, or whatever. But then again, they could just be like, oh, well, yeah, but we needed to just... So, who knows? Nobody knew that WandaVision was going to have 9 episodes until they, like, released whatever. But anyways, let's go out of our way to go into that double-timed territory and then go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil the show. So, in the very beginning, we have it going right from John Walker walking away from going and killing a man with his shield. So we have John Walker running off to go into this little mechanic, like, shop-ish like thing, and we end up having Falcon and Winter, or Falcon and Bucky going after him to just say, like, yeah, like, you just killed an innocent man on live TV, and, like, this is going to look really, really bad for you. So John, how about you, like, relinquish that shield? Because, yeah, like, your time as Captain America is up. Sorry, buddy. But, yeah, like, even under the circumstances of you losing your best friend, what you did was wrong. You killed a guy that gave himself up, and I was just like, man, like, what are going to be the ramifications of this guy doing this? And the ramifications are, like, dude, just, like, you're donezo. You're donezo. So we have it to where John Walker is saying, like, no, like, I will not give up the shield. I'm Captain America. You're not going to take this from me. And so we have it to where now Bucky and Falcon are now fighting Super Soldier U.S. Agent, because I'm never going to call him Captain America. I'm going to call him U.S. Agent. And it'll be interesting to see if once they actually call him U.S. Agent, like what they're actually going to call him by. Are they just going to call him Walker? Are they just going to call him John? Are they just going to call him Agent? Are they going to call him U.S. when he eventually changes his name? But anyways, so we have this fight out, and it's really awesome. So we end up having it to where John Walker ends up ripping the wings off of Falcon, and we end up having like John Walker like basically just like taking out Bucky and Falcon, and the whole ripping of the wings thing was a very symbolic thing to where like John Walker is basically saying like, dude, you're not going to be Falcon anymore. Like, you're not going to be Falcon, you're going to be something else. And that was to basically set this whole thing up. So we end up having it to where they end up having to literally break John Walker's arm to get this shield off of him. And I thought that was amazing. I'm like, oh my god, they literally have to break this guy's arm to get this shield off. I'm like, this is amazing. And so we even have like John Walker, who is still fighting with one good arm, and we end up having it to where like to where Winter ends up taking out eventually Walker, and we end up having like almost like everybody just like falling over freaking hurt, and we end up having like Bucky, who takes the cap shield, and after taking out Walker, and he drops it in front of Falcon and walks away, which I'm like, yeah, because Bucky said all along, like, you should have never given up the shield, and here you go, now it's finally yours. Because we should have taken this from him all along. So, we end up having Falcon taking the shield, but he honestly is just like, well, like, I didn't want to have to take it with these certain kind of circumstances. Like, no, like, this is, like, all wrong. And so we have John Walker going on trial with his arm in a sling and in his military fatigues. And we have these government officials telling John Walker, well, because of your actions, we have determined that you are donezo. Like, you are done. Like, you are going to be retired. You're not going to get any honors, benefits, nothing. And so John Walker is asking, like, well, you don't understand the situation that I was in. You didn't realize that my best friend had died, and no one cares. No one cares that Battlestar had died in this show, which has got to be the most heartbreaking thing, to where John Walker goes to Battlestar's parents and is just kind of grieving with them. Reflecting on photos of John Walker and Battlestar together, and we have it to where John Walker is promising to these parents that it's like, hey, I will get my revenge. I will get this person who did this to your son. So we end up having it while or right after this trial had ended. We have seemingly some actress that I know, of course, from Seinfeld, and I am trying to figure out what her actual name was because I know that supposedly she had said that she had wanted to be called Val. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, which immediately I am quite possibly thinking that this is Hydra because something about this, like I'm I'm getting a big old sniff thing going on here where I think there has to be some kind of secret empire story brewing where we have a Captain America that is going to be a Hydra member and he won't even know it until it's too late is what I'm thinking is happening. Or because where else could U.S. agent really go but to be a Hydra agent? Because who else would have the funding? Who else would be able to have, like, what are we gonna find out the entire time that that Valentina was an agent of Sword or something like that, and that didn't go horribly correct or whatever. So we have Valentina who is praising John Walker for like, man, you taking that super soldier serum was the best thing. Even though that quite obviously made John Walker paranoid or crazy as F, because man, was he just wild within this episode, which I really liked. It was really awesome how he's very aggressive and wild and crazy and all kinds of things. So we have it where Valentina is telling John Walker, it's like, well, hey, like the best thing that you can do now, since you have the super soldier serum in you, like people are going to want to, uh, like, want a person like that to do any number of things. And so, like, more than likely, U.S. agent is going to be picked up to do some covert like things, to work for, to be a hired hitman, to be a hero for hire, quite possibly. And so, like, I'm still waiting for us to have some kind of team being brewed within this story. Like, I'm waiting for some kind of like invaders or something that we can like have a hint of comic book thing going on here, but there still hasn't been that yet. And I guess there never will be, I guess, within this episode. It's just like, oh no, we're not going to put a team together in this show. We're just going to, like, oh, well, we're just gonna say that it's just like these people, and we're not gonna put like invaders or so, like, because Captain America had so many like teams and so many names for stuff, and there's also so many Avengers names and stuff like that. That I was just kind of curious to just like, man, wouldn't it be great if they did this? But I guess we might not ever get that. It just might not be that time. It would be kind of cool if they did a quite possible like, hey guys, we're going to do another Avengers team, and but we're gonna have new Avengers. But I guess they're like, well, we haven't really set up all the other Avengers yet. Yeah, we can say that like Thor's gonna have Love and Thunder, but who the heck else are we going to really present as the next Avenger? Because She-Hulk, I don't think, is going to be the next Avenger. I could be wrong, but I would have liked to have seen maybe an Amadeus Cho or some other kind of uh, like Avenger. No offense to She-Hulk, like I just don't see her as a real true like interesting Avenger character that is going to sell tickets. Like I think a character like Hulk could or Red Hulk could, but I don't think a She-Hulk could, to be brutally honest. I could be wrong, but they would really have to build that character up really well for me to get to go like, oh man, a Hulk show, yeah, because that's what I'm hoping for. But WandaVision's track record isn't really helping me to say that they're gonna take a lot of effort and time to make She-Hulk a really great show. I just don't think it's in the cards. So, moving on. Uh, so we end up having here Valentine uh, giving her card out to John Walker, and so moving on. So as well as that ends up getting wrapped up in a nice, neat little bow. So we end up having Falcon end up taking the shield and is just kind of like chucking it around for little bits here and there, but he ends up not really doing much with. He ends up not really actually doing any action sequences with the shield. A lot of it is just him practicing with the shield for most of this episode. We have it where Anthony Mackie or Falcon is like training, running around, trying to get into the best shape I guess he can physically to be able to handle this shield, and so on and so forth, to the point where he's even like flipping and flopping and all kinds of things and then catching the shield. Just like, oh, look at the cool things that I can do with catching and dropping and whatever the shield. Um, and he has to like figure out how to be able to handle this shield, I guess, and so on and so forth. So we get a lot of time with Falcon just practicing with the shield a lot, and that's what happens a bulk with this show, of Falcon just flipping and flopping around. And I'm like, well, isn't he going to also be like flying with the shield? Like, what are they like? Have we completely just said like, well, we're gonna next the whole uh, like Falcon being actually Falcon thing, or maybe they are going to this and that and whatever have you. So we end up having Falcon uh, going on to try and get his sister's boat working. Eventually, he ends up calling every single favor he can possibly have within this neighborhood to try and get his sister's boat working to where they can sell it. And so we end up having it to where eventually, when Falcon and her sister are to decide to sell the boat, we end up having Falcon's sister saying like, well, you know what, we can't sell the boat, there's too much tradition here, there's too much here where we can't just give it up. And Sam's like, well, yeah, that's great, like that's probably the best decision that you've ever made, because ideally, God, what is her name, Laura or Sarah? Like Sarah like was saying before that like she wasn't making enough money to do this whole boat thing, but I guess it's just like, well, but like we've invested so much time in this now, in this boat, to make it work, that we just can't give up on it. We end up having Sam going and fixing the engine. We have Bucky also helping him out, fixing on the engine and like helping him be able to get heavy items off of certain people's trucks and whatever and what have you, because heaven forbid they have pallet jacks or whatever, or forklifts or whatever it's called, to be able to get this stuff conveniently off. So, but we have to show how strong Bucky is. So we end up having it to where Falcon is practiced more than enough to where we end up having now this information that it seems that the Flag Smashers and Carly are to go and start doing their bad guy thing. And so we end up having it to where Sam is now like he thinks he's ready, and because we had a moment here where like I don't know if I should mention this or not, because we end up having it to where Falcon is considering about coming to be Captain America again. So he ends up going to Isaiah Bradley. And this part is straight up just amazing because we end up having to where Falcon is deciding whether or not to be Captain America, and he goes and asks a previous Captain America. And Bradley is to tell Falcon, like, well, hey, man, like, they ended up, uh, like, after I was done being their Captain America, they ended up poking and prodding me and all kinds of things. Kind of just repeating the exact same story of previous episode, but just extending on it to where eventually we ended up having Bradley just kind of being like tucked under a rock somewhere to where he was hidden away from the world because they wanted to figure out how to perfect the super soldier serum, and like they did all kinds of things to Bradley that would not be considered the right things to do, because at some point they just treated him like, well, like we can just do whatever with him now because he's government property. And so we ended up finding out that eventually Bradley ended up escaping from where he was to eventually hide out where he is now to be able to live the rest of his life in a home where he feels safe. And so we end up having Falcon saying like, well, hey, like I can pull some strings and be able to like kind of resurrect you and like let your story go out there, and you can come out of hiding, and you could like people could be reminded of you like being their Captain America. And we have it to where Bradley is like, no, I will never want that to happen because I'm fine living out my rest of my days and then whatever. Because like I would like Bradley does not want to. Bradley does not want to come out of hiding because eventually he's going to go right back to where he was. I am kind of assessing how exactly if Falcon is going to get the super soldier serum because of some blood transfusion, and where exactly would he get that from if that indeed happens? Because realistically, Falcon said that he does not want the super soldier serum, but when looking at it, is it going to happen anyways? Is what I'm kind of interested in knowing. And so we end up having Bradley telling Falcon that that no man of Bradley or Falcon's skin tone would ever want to become Captain America ever again because of what they did to him. And we ended up having Falcon like he comes to Bradley with the shield. He comes to Bradley and like mentioning how he's just like an old he's an old grump and whatever. But Falcon also wanted words of wisdom from Bradley to just see like, well, what is it really going to be like? What is the worst case scenario so I can make a decision whether I want to be Captain America or not? But we also end up having Bucky coming to Falcon and giving him a briefcase, because we end up having Winter Soldier finding Zemo, and we end up having it to where Falcon ends up pulling a gun on Zemo and pulling the trigger. And I'm like, oh my god! But the gun was completely empty. Bucky drops all of the bullets, and we end up instead having Zemo being collected by the Wakanda women and taken off. We evidently have Ao who tells Bucky, "Yeah, we're gonna send him to the raft," and we have it to where Ao is telling Bucky, it's like, well, hey, like we don't want to see you anytime soon in Wakanda, so like you're kind of like unwelcome from Wakanda for a while. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, man, I would have liked to have had Bucky come back into Wakanda if they're going to do the Wakanda, whatever the heck they're doing. Like, I would have liked to have had Bucky come back onto that show and maybe quite possibly been the White Wolf. But if they're basically going to say, like, well, Bucky is going to be unwelcome in Wakanda now, then I'm like, oh, come on. Like, not that, like you need to have Bucky on that show to make it better. No, like, I would just, like, you've set this thing up so much now that, like, Bucky and the White Wolf thing, like, so now are they not going to actually do that? That kind of seems disappointing. But anyways, so we end up having it to where Winter goes to Falcon and says, like, well, are you going to let Bradley completely and 100% sway you from being Captain America? Like, but then Bucky starts to realize, like, well, I didn't actually understand what being Captain America meant to a guy like Falcon. And that when really looking at it, we have it to where, like, Bradley mentions how, like, Captain America is known to be a blonde-haired guy. And so reasonably with that, it's just kind of like, well, anybody who is not blonde hair really has no, like, that's the reason realistically why Falcon is hesitating, just because it's like, well, everybody knows Captain America, Steve Rogers. Yeah, they replaced him and they gave somebody the moniker, but when really looking at it, like, Bucky didn't realize how much being Captain America would affect somebody. Especially someone who is not Steve Rogers. And who has to fill that guy's shoes, to where, like, Bucky was even saying, like, you know what, like, I was trying to fill Steve's shoes. Like, I was taking his notebook, I was, like, trying to follow exactly what he did, and, like, here is where I am. Like, we end up having Zemo, who ended up crossing himself off of Bucky's notebook and really going off easily with the Wakanda women. And I'm thinking, well, that seemed a little bit too easy. I'm like, are we going to have some moment where Bucky is going to be like, oh no, or Zemo is going to be like, oh no, I just slipped away from those Wakanda women like they were nothing. And, like, now I'm going to be the big bad guy that's going to be in the next whatever the heck movie. Because I think that was way too easy to have had Zemo just be the, like, oh, well, I'm going to be the good guy now because I was the bad guy before. Like, I think there's gotta be some Zemo thing still happening within the show because it doesn't make sense to just stop this now where that is at. Doesn't make sense to me, and we'll see where the rest of this story goes. So, with that said, so we end up having it uh, to where Falcon is to see that there is a mission to be had. That eventually the flag smashers are seemingly growing in numbers, and that eventually there is to be a crisis that is happening on the news. And so Falcon is like, well, you know what? I think it's time. Because we end up having it to where Falcon's sidekick, Ash-like guy, I still don't know his name because he's not on screen enough for me to care, to be brutally honest. We end up having Falcon's sidekick guy, like, giving him a rundown of what's going on, and Falcon's like, well, hey man, I'm going to take it from here. And so we end up having Falcon unlock the case that Winter Soldier had given him, and he's like, oh, and then that's how the episode ends. I'm like, so, man, they're gonna tease the whole Captain America suit thing? Or maybe what if he doesn't actually have the Captain America suit? What if that doesn't happen? What if it's just like, oh, it's just a tease to just say, oh no, he's still gonna have the Captain America suit? Or he's still gonna have the Falcon suit. It's just like a Falcon Volume 2 suit. And I'm like, no, like, he needs to have the Captain America suit. Like, if we are to end this show, like, I want there to be, like, the Captain America suit. And then plus, I'm also thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, if this is going to be the last show or the last episode next week or whatever, because there might just be 6 episodes in this show, I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't there supposed to be, wasn't there a tease for a Omega Red being in this show somewhere? Supposedly, the Flag Smashers are teaming up with Batroc, and evidently Batroc the Leaper has some tricks up his sleeve and some gadgets to give to the Flag Smashers, which I don't know exactly what that is, because I just saw him open up a briefcase and said, oh, hey, here you go. And so, like, I don't know, this next episode could be like freaking just, oh my god, this is amazing, or it really could just be like, okay, well, here's some interesting things going on here, and they teased at Falcon getting the actual Captain America suit, but no, he just got another Falcon suit, and so he's not still legitimately going to be Captain America just yet, and that would be like, I want Falcon to be Captain America. I want this to happen so badly. And for them to tease the crap out of it, I didn't like that about this episode. Because I'm psyched. So much so about Falcon putting on that Captain America suit. I can't wait to see what it looks like. Because it's probably going to be awesome. So yeah, with that said, I think I'm going to try to get out of here. Because I think I've talked long enough. So, with that said, like, there was a great amount of things in this episode, and it was freaking awesome. But with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.